It begins with a rumor, a line so sharp it slices through the ordinary noise of politics, a claim spreading across screens, feeds, and whispered conversations, that the leader of the world's most powerful one-party state has called Britain's new Prime Minister a puppet of Washington. The phrase lands like a thunderclap, sparking outrage, disbelief, laughter, and fury. But what if it isn't true? What if this is a mirage? A reflection of the deep anxieties shaping Britain's place in the world? Tonight, we untangle how such a claim can shake a government, stir a nation, and tell us more about ourselves than about the words of a foreign leader. The day the headline appears, Westminster is already tense. The economy flickers between recovery and recession. The tabloids hunt for scandal, and the country's diplomatic machinery hums quietly beneath the surface. Then a screenshot begins to circulate. A blurred image of an alleged newswire, quoting Xi Jinping with the words, "puppet of Washington." No source link, no broadcast video, no state media confirmation. Yet within minutes it is shared, reposted, amplified. For some it confirms every suspicion, that Britain has surrendered its independence to American power. For others it's an obvious fake, a cynical attempt to provoke division. But either way it spreads, and once a story like this takes hold, it begins to move faster than the truth. In London's cafes, commuters scroll and mutter. In Parliament's corridors, aides check their phones and whisper to journalists. The claim's simplicity makes it irresistible. It feels plausible because it fits an old script. Britain as the loyal ally, the junior partner, the echo of American will. For critics of the Prime Minister, it's proof that his foreign policy has made the country subservient. For supporters, it's a sign that foreign rivals fear Britain's alignment with the West. In truth, no one can verify the words, but politics rarely waits for evidence. In the newsroom of a major broadcaster, producers debate how to handle the story. One insists they must ignore it until a transcript appears. Another warns that if they ignore it, social media will define the narrative first. The editor decides to run a segment clarifying that the quote remains unverified, but even that cautious statement plants the phrase in millions of minds. The paradox of journalism in the digital age: to deny something, you must repeat it. As evening falls, opposition spokespeople issue cautious remarks. Some demand that the Prime Minister respond directly, others urge restraint until facts emerge. On talk radio, callers line up to vent, some furious that a foreign leader would insult Britain, others amused that the government seems rattled by an internet rumor. The line between real diplomacy and online theater begins to blur. Inside Downing Street, advisors gather around a long oak table. The Prime Minister listens as the Foreign Secretary outlines the situation. The Chinese embassy has issued no statement. State media channels remain silent, and no official translator or note-taker recalls any such remark from recent talks. Still, the phrase dominates headlines. It doesn't matter whether he said it, one aide murmurs. People believe he could have. That is the deeper problem. Perception has become reality. Through the night, analysts dig for clues. They replay footage of the last bilateral meeting between Xi and Starmer, searching for any gesture, any mistranslation that could have sparked confusion. They find none. What they do find is a familiar pattern. Politically charged language often misattributed, magnified by accounts seeking clicks, outrage, or ideological leverage. Somewhere, a single post began the chain, and within hours it reached millions who never paused to check where it came from. By dawn, the story dominates the morning bulletins. Britain reacts to alleged insult from Beijing, one network says, the word alleged slipping past many ears. Commentators fill the airwaves. Some warn of an escalating information war. Others see domestic political opportunity. The Prime Minister's opponents accuse him of weakness. His allies accuse them of feeding disinformation. Diplomats, meanwhile, worry about real consequences. Markets react to uncertainty. Investors hesitate. And embassies exchange quiet clarifications to prevent misunderstanding. Behind the noise lies a deeper tension. Britain's search for identity in a shifting world. Decades ago, it was empire, then alignment with Washington, then a European project that ended in divorce. Now, as global power tilts eastward, the question resurfaces. Is the United Kingdom truly independent, or forever bound to the interests of its allies? The viral quote crystallizes that anxiety in 8 words. On the streets of Manchester, a taxi driver tells a reporter he's not surprised. Of course they think that, he says. We follow the Americans into every war, every deal. Maybe she just said what everyone already knows. In Cambridge, a student shakes her head. It's propaganda, she says. They want us fighting each other instead of thinking about what China's actually doing. In pubs and online forums, the debate becomes a mirror, each side seeing its own reflection. In Beijing, officials watch the Western chatter with curiosity. State media eventually mention the rumor only to dismiss it, quoting a foreign ministry spokesperson who calls the claim a distortion. But that denial hardly travels as far as the original spark. The algorithm prefers outrage to correction. For many viewers, the clarification never appears on their feed. Within 24 hours, the government faces pressure to make a statement. In a carefully worded press conference, the Prime Minister addresses reporters. I'm aware of the reports circulating online, he says evenly. They are not based on any verified record of recent discussions. The United Kingdom conducts its foreign policy independently, guided by our national interest. We remain open to constructive engagement with all partners, including China, while standing firm with our allies. It's a textbook answer, firm, diplomatic, and deliberately dull. Yet every network cuts the clip down to one sentence. We remain firm with our allies. For some viewers, that confirms the accusation. For others, it ends the speculation. The truth becomes a matter of perspective. That night, as commentators dissect his tone, attention shifts to the larger issue of misinformation. Experts explain how digital platforms reward emotional content. A rumor framed as insult travels further than a factual correction. Memes and short clips outpace paragraphs of analysis. Political communication becomes a battlefield where outrage is ammunition. And in that environment, even a seasoned government can be caught off guard. Meanwhile, inside think tanks and universities, researchers compile data. They note that similar fabricated quotes have appeared before, often portraying Western leaders as weak or servile, often timed to coincide with sensitive policy debates. Some originate from anonymous accounts with links to coordinated influence networks, others from domestic activists seeking attention. The motives vary, but the effect is constant: confusion, division, distrust. As the days pass, the initial fury begins to settle into something more reflective. Newspaper columns question why the British public was so quick to believe the claim. Perhaps, they suggest, it resonated because it touched a nerve. Britain's alliance with the United States has long been both asset and burden, a source of security and a symbol of dependence. Every government insists the relationship is one of equals, yet every crisis seems to test that assertion. The viral quote, whether true or not, became shorthand for a fear that Britain no longer acts entirely on its own. Foreign policy veterans recall earlier moments of tension. In the 1960s, French leaders mocked Britain's special relationship. During the Iraq War, protesters carried placards calling Tony Blair Bush's poodle. Now, decades later, the language repeats itself, only this time projected through the lens of social media. What once took days to print now spreads in seconds. The accusation remains timeless. Who truly pulls the strings of power in London? In the quiet of the Foreign Office, a senior diplomat drafts a memo. It begins with a sentence that could apply to every modern controversy. Perception management is now part of statecraft. The memo advises ministers to address the rumor not by repeating denials, but by demonstrating independent action, clear policy steps that show Britain making its own choices. The best rebuttal to the charge of subservience, the note concludes, is autonomy in practice. In living rooms across the country, the story fades from the top of feeds, replaced by new controversies, new distractions. Yet its residue lingers. People remember the insult, even if they forget that it was unverified. They remember the argument it sparked, even if they never read the correction. In that sense, the quote achieves its purpose, not to reveal truth, but to stir feeling.